Hi, Bridget.
Okay. Bridget Williams has joined us. Bridget is the Chief Product and Strategy Officer at
Forget the
Hearst
strategy, Brian.
Newspapers.
Don't forget the strategy.
I added the strategy. You've got two jobs.
Am I going to have like Taylor Swift walk-on music?
No, there's none of that.
I don't have any pink on. There's no female
We could do
energy
that.
vibes.
We could have our friend Vanya do something like that for you, maybe.
Yeah.
The Barbie theme song. Yeah.
So Bridget, I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about being a thoughtful mercenary for the hardest of the hard challenges, and that's local
Correct.
news. Like when we're talking about tough, this is the toughest challenge.
I don't know what you're talking about. We've got it handled.
I know. Talk to me about making local news a utility, because I think that's the path.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because it used to be, right? And I think I've heard Troy speak about there was, a beautiful bundle in local news that you got coupons and you knew who died and you found your car and your house. And those were all useful things. And I think, the internet disrupted that and we had self-inflicted wounds around that as well. And I think we're trying to, the optimism of the technology that exists now and the agentic world is that we can kind of reclaim that and do it in smarter ways. And so, when I talk to the newsrooms and we talk about utility, they will say, we've always done this. We've always helped people live better lives. And what we're asking them is we have to move from giving the information to actually building the tool. And I think that's where product has to come together with the Dev Hub. I'm out here in San Francisco, Pulitzer Prize winning San Francisco Chronicle, meeting with our newsroom technology team to, if we are trying to solve a problem, do we use product and technology to take journalism and make it a tool? And I think we have multiple examples, which you know of, but it's going on in every part, every beat, every part of the organization is how does what we're writing help you live better?
Okay. Give us an example, because I like the property tax tool example.
Yeah.
Give us that.
I mean, Texas property taxes are a whole thing. And if you live in the rest of the country, you don't understand what volumes of people protest their property taxes. It's
you can
millions and
protest your property taxes in Texas, apparently.
And people
You
do
could
it
actually hand it over to a lawyer that'll work. They'll call
Correct.
you up. They just raised mine, and a lawyer called me and said, "I'll take it from you and just run with it." And I handed it to him. Yeah.
That's correct. And these law firms, it's very lucrative. They take a percentage of the, if you get reassessed. And so what we had been doing was FOIA-ing for the algorithms that are used to make the assessments. And we basically turned that into a tool where we had the most accurate way that if you put in your address, we show you what you're benchmarked against according to how the assessor is using it. We allow you to fill out a form. We tell you whether you're likely able to get a reassessment. And then you put in some information about your house and we write you out using AI, a script for what you have to submit to the courts. And it's been really successful. And you're walking the line.
That's super cool. That's really cool that you did that.
And what we're not doing is we're not a agent. We are not a, insurance
Take a
broker.
cut. Come on, take a cut. Be a bounty hunter.
Yeah. I mean, where is the line? And I think we're trying to figure it out. When does it move into something that is, from information and tooling into sort of advocacy and in the business of? And I think, culturally and even with our users, they're going, well, wait, why are you doing this? But we love it, and I think we're going to get there in all parts of the business. And it's just becoming useful. The data that's available and what we're able to do now is, we can really amp that up. And we also understand more about our users and who needs what. So it's a big part of what we're building.
Bridget, can AI save the local news business? Because it's actually kind of interesting. First of all, I always admired the kind of media marketability of local news because it's a differentiated media product.
Yeah,
right.
That's right.
Whereas if you run
Yeah, magazines are much
Cosmo
tougher.
And Elle
Yep,
and
way tougher.
Bazaar, everybody can do
Yep.
that type of lifestyle content. So I think there's a uniqueness to local stuff that's really valuable. The thing about that gave New York Times some liftoff is they were always better at product than all the smaller players.
Correct.
Because it took so many engineers and product
that's right.
people, and obviously fortified by the scale and turns in a big newsroom. So that's true. But I think now, like, you can just build shit, and you can build
Totally.
really good stuff.
That's right.
And so maybe AI helps you guys.
Yeah, it looks like. Did you use it for this California college admissions tool, the guide?
I mean, we used AI in the engineering of it, but as it relates to like building product, democratizing the things that used to have to go central, supercharging the content that we're able to do, all of these things. I mean, we just had a big product summit that was like, everyone has to shift left. A product manager should be shipping code. Anyone should be able to do design within our design framework with constraints. And, even on newsrooms, like we have this experimentation lab called Acorns. There's a lot of hand holding of like, what's the experiment? What's the metric? That can all get like, there are thought agents that we can build in to let everyone launch experiments without having to go through the product experimentation funnel. And it feels like an exciting time. And I'm very happy to say, like, the newsrooms and everyone is embracing it. And I think because they're seeing that it isn't just about efficiency, it's about they're able to do things that they were never able to do. And to Troy's point, it does level the New York Times is going to get supercharged as well, and they're going to be 10 times more effective. But it does allow us to do things that we don't have the size teams, have not had the same size teams.
Yeah,
we've always been super scrappy. The other thing about in an open AI, all these negotiations, what is the novelty of what we do? How would the model fall apart without our content? I'm very interested in that topic because I do think in the world of Cosmo and some of the other large media companies, there's just lots more commodization, and there are facts that we are collecting that do not get collected without us. And how much value do we bring to the model? I also, we're bringing in hundreds of data feeds, right? Does that become part of our corpus, and does that become part of our body of work? If we are bringing in a data feed and we're giving it more context, let's say we're scraping a meeting, let's say we're taking grocery prices, right? These are all the kinds of data feeds that we're using to create graphs and utility. Imagine if that becomes part of our knowledge graph. That's just a much more robust look at what's going on in a local market than could be provided without the context.
So how are you using AI to create new formats?
Well, I mean, imagine the atomization of the journalism so that you can remix it into key points or summaries, or an animated penguin reading you the news, or, a daily audio briefing that's personalized to you. That becomes, we do have human in the loop and all of those quality signals, but imagine the amount of giving you what you want when you want it in the format that you want, that the article does not become the thing. Article is one of the ways that you might understand journalism and information. That feels, we're experimenting with this thing called Second Surface, which is really right now just vertical video, right? It's very like poor man's TikTok. But you can imagine if you're a mobile person, you like to get a quick swipe experience of like, what's going on in Houston this morning? Give it to me in 30 seconds. And that is a value in as much as an investigative report is a value. And so once you have our journalism and, whether it's a data briefing or a chart or a vertical video or 3 key points, it feels like we're going to be able to, we're asking users to just do the same thing every day, which is, do you have all this time to come in, read a bunch of articles? And I don't think we can live in that world.
It seems to me that local really is the nexus point for lots of data, because it's not just your property taxes, it's your school results, it's, health related data, it's local sports scores, it's all of the things that you really care about. So if you can, before, Bridget, this because, like Hearst is now, probably a couple decades into platform experiments that are under-resourced, I would say. And
100%.
And if you can really start to process that data and bring, the intelligence to it to help people understand it, and then activate it on the back of it, whether that's, the sort of advocacy, send in your letter thing for taxes or whatever it is, that's pretty powerful. And it's like a whole nother stream in addition to local reporting and video and audio that you can use to create relevancy.
That's right.
It seems like a great idea.
That's the reason I'm here, is I've spent 2 days locked in a room with the Dev Hub, because they have been the data journalism architecture for the newsrooms. But what they've been doing, because we've been scrappy, is like, there's a bunch of silos of data. And so now we're saying, all right, what if you were starting a news in a new market, what would be the 500 data sources that you would pull into a framework? And when you mass them up, I think insights occur, right? If you take that corner of the street and the building and the crime rate, a story might emerge, right? If you take immigration, if you take immigration trends by zip code and correlate that with housing prices, right? So the first thing that it does is, as a user, is there this was the debate while I was here. Can you log on to this site in the morning and get a sense of what is my city today, a thumbs up, a mid thumb, or a thumbs down? What are all the traffic, the weather, the crime, a cool event happening, right? What is the daily TikTok that data allows you to see in your city? And then what's the newsroom that you build on top of this really expansive data set? And do you start building do you get journalism signals from that? In addition to the things that we always do well.
Like you say, the newsroom's totally on board with it. And I know newsrooms love to change. They love people coming in, talking about data and all that. They love it. But in the real world, they're like, this is not journalism. Give me a break. It's something else. And, if that moves front and center, and particularly as the article becomes less of the atomic unit, how much of that is a cultural change?
It's incredible. I don't want to overstate that. I think data journalism first was a central team building out some things for you. Then it was hire some data journalists in every newsroom, and they kind of sit off in a corner. And now it is what is the data journalism of every beat? And we're not there yet, but I will tell you, derivative content and liquefaction, sure, that we're far from everyone in the newsroom understanding where we're all going with that. But data journalism, first of all, it performs incredibly well. I mean, it is the most important thing that we're doing from a reach and conversion perspective. And they see those numbers, and our journalists say yes, change is hard and people don't like to change. But local journalists, very differently, I think, than some of the features or magazines, are so tied into the business model at this point. And they do understand the challenges. And so when they see the numbers, that what happens when we really spend time on data journalism, they're behind it.
Okay.
I think how many data journalists the Chronicle have? I'm going to say a dozen, maybe, and that will probably only increase.
Okay. Troy, you have a final point?
I have a question. Sorry, sometimes I'm on all the accounts, so people get those notification codes. My wife needs something from Amex. Okay, so here's a question.
Transparency that's at the core.
This is what we
What is she
here.
buying? What is she buying?
Something at Amazon. So I used to have this discussion with Steve and Mark Oldham, and it was the fundamental decision. Steve is the CEO of Hearst. And it was the fundamental decision. I was just curious about it because he was an advocate for it, was the separation of the paid site in San Francisco and Houston which is the Chronicle in San Francisco, from this big free site called SFGate.
Yeah.
And I always thought about it, maybe naively, that, that free was a gateway and it was a funnel, and that the focus should be, sort of selectively opening up your paywall and using the free opportunity to find people. And the kind of counter argument was like, let's not let the paid stuff get in the way of just building a big free site. And that site will be ad supported, but it'll be unencumbered. And we'll let the Chronicle, bundle print where people want it and just be a paid thing. It's still that way today, I believe, right?
Totally. One
Do you hate that? Or, I mean, I don't know if that's if you don't want to answer it, just don't answer it. But
no, I don't hate it. I mean, for a while, the free sites were that was really my purview of figuring out where they fit into the world. My thinking has very much evolved on this topic. The Gate has as loyal and engaged a user base as the Chronicle, and there's definitely crossover. Like, where does free news fit? It used to be that I said it's a vibes, right? It's like the what we cover and how we cover it is different on the Gate, and it serves a different audience. I'm not sure that that's there anymore. At the same time, we've gotten so much smarter on the subscription sites. We have this thing called Next Best Action. It has like hundreds of signals. It decides when you get a paywall and when you get a free session and when we might collect an email address. So we now have a really smart way of activating the subscription sites. And then you have this free site out there, which is writing articles on the internet on news. And I think now about do we have an obligation to give information for free? Right?
Forget about the business. A civic obligation.
And is it a business opportunity? Right? In this area where reach is dead and scale is difficult. And I'm starting to think like more about the derivative works and aggregation and curation. And maybe the way ahead is more about like, there's a place that you can go that will just kind of aggregate a little bit of information. But if you want like deeper content, you come into a different space. But the real answer, Troy, is like, I know that this strategy has to evolve. At the same time, we're launching a membership on the Gate where you get an ad-free app and it's called Friends of the Gate. You get friends with benefits. And we're going to see how that goes, because I think different than our Texas sites, the Gate has a real zeitgeist here. And so can we give it a different kind of life? But, more and more, I think there's an audience called people who read news articles on the internet, and they're the same audience. And so this kind of differentiation, I think, isn't really a thing anymore.
Apparently, if you had listened to the rest of our podcast, it's people who had formerly read articles.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get that.
Because the Atlantic just told us that people don't read anymore, and Brian's really Brian's up in arms.
I send like 2,000 words in an email like multiple times a week.
The scroll rates are just, I mean, how we get journalism into people's brains without reading an article is the job here. And
pictures on Instagram. That's the way I'd go.
Brian, I promise you it's going to be okay. We're going to figure it out.
I know. I've got faith in you.
Do you hear, Bridget, by the way, just as a fun item, that Brian was likened to Matt Bellany, the Matt Bellany of advertising?
I'm not.
It was a designation that he very much is cherishing. And he's now iconic, really.
Yeah, you're a future. Iconic. You're kind of a futurist too.
Yeah. No, I'll be a B2B influencer if I have to. I will.
How many breakfasts can you go to, though? Really?
You'd be surprised. On that, I have a hard stop. So I have to go. Do you guys want to do good product without me? It's fine.
We can. I'm not well, you know what? Maybe it's a little bit, Brian, you should stick around for this. Okay. Well, I watched the documentary last night on a reference that you made earlier to me in the week, Brian, which is on Robin Bird.
Did you Robin Bird? I don't think I did.
You're like the Robin Bird of advertising.
I should do that.
Yeah. But I'm sorry. It's called Bang My Box. It's on HBO. So it's highbrow. It's highbrow. So, and it was produced by Sarah Jessica Parker. And it's this great story of this kind of kooky woman who's really a beautiful person. And the whole unlock is cable access television. And it becomes this really popular thing in the 80s and 90s. And she embraces gay culture, and it becomes like part of that whole expanding You Do It media universe. She becomes a massive advocate
Brian,
for safe sex.
do you not know who Robin? Do you not know?
I know Howard Stern. Yeah. Howard Stern's sidekick.
No. Bridget, explain who it is.
I have no idea who it is.
Oh, no. So wrong.
She is like...
Isn't that Robin Bird?
No. Oh, maybe it's another Robin Bird, but she is this wacky, bleach blonde lady that just was like talking about free sex in an era where it just no one was talking about it.
She was a porn star.
Yeah.
Oh, I cut my teeth with Dr. Ruth. I don't know this person.
Listen, she rose from adult film performer to adult public access host and icon.
You got to Google
kind of gay icon.
Yeah, I will.
Immediately when you're done with your sales call.
After my client call with Amita, I'm definitely.
Or maybe you can
she was doing
the call.
stuff, Bridget, that we all see now, like putting her makeup on at the beginning of the show in front of the camera, right? Bringing on all these side acts and stuff like she would.
I gotta go. You guys continue this, but I gotta go. This is a great lead in to my client call.
It is a great product. I think that's all you need on that, right, Troy?
That's it for this episode of People vs. Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.